Hong Kong has been ranked the least affordable housing market in the world 8 years in a row, and by a long shot. Housing prices are now almost 20 times more than annual income. That means that a household making 50,000 US dollars would, on average, be looking for a house that costs $980,000. And it's getting really bad. Hundreds of thousands of residents now squeeze into incredibly small apartments, most of them no bigger than a parking space.
So these are cage homes, which basically fit one person and their belongings, and they basically stack these in a room in order to fit as many people as they can in the room.
And yet the price per square foot for these smaller houses just keeps shooting up. I visited these homes to try to piece together an explanation for this trend, and to meet the people who are being squeezed by the world's least affordable real estate market.
All right. It's ironic that you listened to my video when I'm a video maker and I rely on visuals, but you get the flavor of what I'm doing here. This is a teaser. We did this so that you are also curious that you'll go watch the video now. I made 5 episodes from Hong Kong this year. Listening to that and reflecting on that and the theme of tonight is actually kind of nostalgic for me, and it gives me a great deal of optimism and hope. And I'll explain why. This video that we just heard the 2-minute intro to, it's actually a 10-minute video, and it's about some boring stuff. I'm just gonna say it bluntly. Tax policy, zoning law, like housing, infrastructure, things that if you heard, you wouldn't say, oh, I wanna watch a 10-minute video about that on the internet when I could be watching Saturday Night Live or cat videos. But that being said, 20 million people watched this video on Facebook and on YouTube. If you would have told me that 3 years ago, I wouldn't have believed it. 3 years ago, when I started making videos for the internet as a journalist, digital video is still going through, but was really going through a huge transformation. Places like the New York Times and the Washington Post were thinking, how do we adjust to this new world of internet video? We can all watch videos on our phones. We have bandwidth. How do we reach people with video? And the thinking back then was, we need to keep things to 2 minutes. People don't have the attention spans. The internet is destroying our attention, so we need to keep things to 2 minutes. So actually at Vox, we started out with these 2-minute explainers. And we're like, man, if we go over 2 minutes, people are gonna check out. We can't explain healthcare and all these things, in 5 or 10 minutes. And so that was the thinking for a long time. And we did that. Well, one day, the Syrian civil war came up as like, man, our viewers really want to understand this. So we said, okay, we need to make a video. I sat down with a foreign editor. We came up with this idea. We wrote a script. I counted up the words, and I was like, this is going to be 7 minutes long. And our minds were just blown, like 7 minutes long. There's no way we can make a 7-minute video. That's like way longer than anything we've done. So we tried to cut it down, and for those who understand the Syrian civil war, you can't cut it down. It's complicated. It's got so many different layers, all these proxy wars and this Cold War. And so I went back to my editor and I was like, we can't cut this down. We have to if we're gonna do this right, we have to do 7 minutes. It's like, all right, do it. It won't get any views, but at least we did it right. We made this video, 7 minutes long. It was just a map with all of the different components. It was a rigorous explanation of the Syrian civil war. We uploaded it. It got 100 million views. And on Facebook, the thing that's destroying society and making us all have ADD, 100 million views later, this video about geopolitics in the Middle East started to signal to us, oh, there's an appetite out there for people to understand these complex issues. The internet isn't just incentivizing people to be entertained, it's also opening doors for us to understand and to be empowered by knowledge. So we continue to push the envelope. Israel-Palestine was another big conflict that I wanted to explain. You can't do that in 7 minutes. 10 minutes. I went to my editor, I have this 10-minute video, and I literally remember them laughing, being like, no, that's the limit. You can't do 10 minutes. We uploaded it, millions of views later, we're like, okay. So, that's why I say listening to this is exciting to me because it represents the internet not just as the bane of good information and entertaining ourselves to death, but it represents another side of the internet that we don't talk about as much because it's not as urgent or dire or pessimistic. But it's the idea that there are people, a teenager in the Philippines, or my roommate who majored in engineering, who want to understand the border conflict between Haiti and the Dominican Republic. And they will choose to watch a 15-minute documentary. That's how long my Haiti-DR borders documentary is, 15 minutes. They will sit through and watch a 15-minute documentary about colonial history, about tax policy, about immigration policy, about the constitution change to the DR in 2010 that took away citizenship from millions of Dominicans of Haitian descent. These wonky details that you would think, man, no one's going to sit around and listen to that. That's for the academics. Suddenly, these people are interested in learning. And that, as soon as I started to catch on to that reality, my hope in this medium blossomed. And I got really excited, and I've been really excited to say, how do we harness this? And it's become more of a challenge to say, what do I need to do to then earn these people's attention? Do I need to make it more entertaining? What I've found is that it's not about entertainment, it's about empowering people with knowledge. So that's one thing. The experience that I've had with the views is one thing, but views aren't everything. Views aren't engagement. Last year, when I started Borders, I said, what if I tested this knowledge, or this wisdom that we've kind of developed, that people really want to feel empowered about knowledge, not just be entertained on the internet. And we started to ask for them to participate, and not just watch the videos, but actually participate. So we opened it up. We said, hey, I want to go to a border around the world. Where should I go? Thinking, okay, I'll probably get like 200, 300, maybe 400 responses of people who are like engaged enough to like tell me what border is interesting. 7,000 responses later, and going through this spreadsheet of all the responses, paragraphs and paragraphs of people explaining why this border between US and Canada is actually really interesting, because there's this tax policy that if you cross the border and buy something in this state, then suddenly you don't have to pay taxes. And you start to realize that people are fascinated in this stuff. So we started to harness that appetite and turn Borders not only into a one-way directional communication platform about information, but a two-way conversation with locals. These Hong Kong episodes that I published earlier this year, there's 5 of them. Before I went, I reached out specifically just to Hong Kong locals, and I said, who in Hong Kong wants to help me explain this place? I'm an outsider. And we got a group of 1,000 Hong Kong locals, people who just lived in Hong Kong, who every week I would send an email to, and they would respond. And I would say, what does it feel like to be a Hong Konger and have your identity being challenged by the superpower China? And I would get 1,000 responses. Well, not 1,000, I'd get probably like 600. But that's plenty to go through. And suddenly I'm reading through 600 responses of eager participants in this project. This project isn't some highly rational, incentivized program where they're going to get paid, or they're going to get entertained, or they're going to get famous. This is, hey, contribute to this project so that we can all learn together about the world and that we can all share. And the videos were stronger because of that. Today, I published the Columbia version of Borders that I've been working on for the past several months, and it's the same thing. It's embedded with local voices and local perspectives. I share these stories with you to drive home the point and to challenge you to think about the internet not purely as this turmoil where we're all losing our attention spans and we're all just reading little bite sizes and there's fake news. All of those are real problems. There's psychological data and studies that show that our attention spans are decreasing, and that's a big problem. But let us also look for the bright side of this amazing communication platform where millions of people, hundreds of millions of people at times, can engage with compelling and complex content that can be told by one person out in the field with a camera. That's amazing. And the potential of that reality and those connections, they're so lean, they're so nimble, they're so cheap. Imagine if that storytelling could be applied to other things like climate change, like these big issues that we're facing. That's something that I'm interested in, and I want to inspire other filmmakers and journalists to start to think of the internet as a big conversation with a huge audience of eager participants who want to contribute and not just be entertained. Thank you very much.